The black woman is the most unprotected, disrespected person on earth.
Fierce opposition and protesters outraged.
Under Kentucky state law, this is an unlawful assembly.
Chaos at demonstrations in Louisville and marches happening across the nation after the decision not to charge officers with murder in Breonna Taylor's death.
Justice is not often easy, does not fit the mold of public opinion.
Here in Colorado, a peaceful gathering to send a clear message.
Despite our disappointment, our anger, our frustration with the way things went, we're not giving up.
Not giving up until change is made. Tonight, the Coloradans who are demonstrating say this is not the outcome they'd hoped for. Protesters taking to the streets across the country and in Colorado. In fact, this is a live look now from Air Tracker 7 at the crowds gathering in downtown Denver. They've now moved right in front of Denver Police District 6 substation.
They marched and they chanted tonight for several hours, furious over the news that only one of the officers involved in Breonna Taylor's death has been indicted, and it's not for murder. The other two officers won't face any criminal charges.
And in just the last 30 minutes, Air Tracker 7 caught protesters. Take a look at this. They're swarming around this car, and then the car takes off, nearly runs over some of the people in that crowd. Nobody was hurt. Denver police were able to stop the car. They have detained the driver. It's not clear right now if any charges will be filed.
Now back to Louisville tonight. It was chaos. Things were set on fire. At least 2 police officers were shot. In fact, listen to the moments those gunshots rang out.
So at this hour, both of the officers rushed to surgery, are in stable condition. One suspect is in custody. The National Guard has been deployed there in Louisville, and there is a 9 p.m. curfew, and that will remain in effect for 72 hours.
Demonstrations also took place tonight on the streets of New York, Milwaukee, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., just to name a few. So to back up here, here's a quick recap of today's developments. Former Louisville officer Brett Hankinson is now facing 3 counts of wanton endangerment for shooting into Taylor's apartment, charged because the bullets threatened people in neighboring units.
Today, the Kentucky Attorney General said Taylor's boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, fired the first shots, hitting that officer, and that's when officers returned fire.
He says that the male was holding a gun, arms extended, in a shooting stance. Sergeant Mattingly saw the man's gun fire, heard a boom, and immediately knew he was shot.
Walker says he was fired. He fired a warning shot from his legally owned gun because police did not announce themselves before barging into the apartment to serve a search warrant. The Kentucky AG says a civilian witness did hear police announce themselves.
The attorney for Breonna Taylor's family called this decision outrageous and offensive, saying this is, quote, another example of no accountability for the genocide of persons of color by white police officers.
You pray every day that this racist criminal justice system and legal system that I call the legalized genocide of colored people will be abolished in America.
And now we want to get out to Denver7's Gary Brode. And Gary, people in Denver took to the streets downtown tonight. They were outraged and they wanted to share their message during tonight's march.
Yeah, and those we talked to were shocked, they were disappointed, and they were angry at the decision. Certainly it didn't go the way that they wanted. Protesters we talked to say while it wasn't the right decision, the message hasn't changed. They want change now.
After the verdict, it was important to have our voices heard in honor of Breonna.
Many here in front of the Capitol in disbelief as the decision came in from Louisville.
Because it matters to me. Today wasn't justice. That's not what justice looks like.
But it's not surprising, it's disappointing.
Karen Roberts Grissom helped organize tonight's events.
The black woman is the most unprotected, disrespected person on earth, and it shouldn't be that way.
As day turned to night, this protest went from the Capitol to the streets.
Black Lives Matter!
President Trump praised Kentucky's Attorney General, saying he is doing a fantastic job, calling him brilliant and a star.
I understand he's called up the National Guard, which is a good thing. I think it's a very positive thing. And it'll all work out.
Denver Nuggets coach Mike Malone calling the decision tragic.
It also makes me think a lot closer to home and Elijah McClain and a lot of players on our team especially have also spoken out on justice for Breonna Taylor, and we have not gotten that justice.
Demonstrators are adamant while it's a setback, it's not the end.
And despite our disappointment, our anger, our frustration with the way things went, we're not giving up. And this will not end until change happens.
I want to take you back to that video of the driver who went through the protesters about 45 minutes ago. We were right in the area as it happened. Now, that driver was parked right in front of the Capitol, right here on Lincoln. You saw him going through a few of those protesters, then turning onto Colfax from Lincoln, but he didn't get very far. Police stopped him right at Broadway in Lincoln, one block over from there. We did see that person, that driver, was detained, put in handcuffs. We're told by police, not arrested at this point. They are still investigating that incident. Reporting live here in Denver, Gary Brode, Denver7.
Gary, thank you. Today, District Attorney George Brockler announced that the driver of this blue Jeep caught on Air Tracker 7 camera driving through a crowd at the Elijah McClain protest will not face charges. This happened July 25th as protesters were marching on I-225. The DA's office says the intent of the driver wasn't to harm anyone. It was just to get out of a tense situation.
A local teenager is letting people know who he's voting for, and while out campaigning on a Denver street, a driver passing by confronted him.
That teen says the driver threatened him with a gun, and tonight he's talking with Denver7's Addie Guajardo.
A homemade sign,
"I'm riding with Biden,"
designed to show support.
As drivers are passing by, I'm just waving to them.
For former Vice President Joe Biden in the upcoming presidential election took a turn on Tuesday around 11 a.m. on the corner of York Street and 7th Avenue. The teen out waving his sign asked to remain anonymous out of fear after he was confronted by a driver.
Telling me that because I'm a young person, my voice doesn't matter, and that I shouldn't be out here because I don't know anything.
The driver sped off, only to come back a second time. The Biden supporter says things escalated with another woman defending him, and so did the driver's threat.
I'm gonna go get my AR-15.
The man kept his promise and returned in a different vehicle to confront the teen and people who came out to defend him.
"Hey ladies," yells it. That's what got my attention, and I see the gun pointed in my face.
Scared, he ran.
I got into full flight mode.
The teen says they called Denver police. They're now looking into the altercation. The teen describes the driver as a man in his late 30s, driving a black Porsche and later a black Range Rover. His message:
don't try to intimidate, don't try to use fear as a tool.
The Biden campaign volunteer plans to keep fighting for his candidate and making his voice heard. Addie Guajardo, Denver7.
And now to the solemn tribute at our nation's highest court for the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. More than 100 of her former law clerks lined the steps there to serve as honorary pallbearers as her coffin was carried inside. Colorado's Attorney General Phil Weiser was among them. Family and fellow justices came to say their final goodbyes, including Chief Justice John Roberts, who praised Ginsburg for moving our country closer to equal justice under the law. Former President Bill Clinton, who nominated Ginsburg, also paid his respects today. Ginsburg will lie in repose again tomorrow at the Supreme Court building. She will then lie in state at the U.S. Capitol on Friday. Interment services are scheduled for next week.
The outbreak on CU Boulder's campus is now the largest outbreak in the state of Colorado. They have nearly 1,200 positive cases, and there are more than 100 probable cases. As of today, classes went fully remote for at least the next 2 weeks. And as for the statewide count on this Wednesday, we've added more than 615 cases today to get us to nearly 67,000 total cases. And the good news here is that hospital capacity is still low. A Colorado lawn care company is paying the state $125,000 after a state investigation found Fit Turf used telemarketers to enroll thousands of Coloradans in lawn care services without disclosing that the services would be automatically renewed. The Attorney General says consumers should have been given clear and accurate information when agreeing to that service.
How about some good news for you tonight? Loki, that little puppy stolen at gunpoint from a couple near a Denver park, has been returned. Loki's owner says he got a phone call from the police today that the dog was turned in. We are still tonight waiting to see if an arrest was made.